All right. Let's see if you can hear me. Hopefully you can. Starting a minute early. I meant to start a little bit earlier, but I know there's a delay. Turn that fan off. So, hello, Ruth, Allison, Colette. Hello to Bill B, Mike G. Hope all is well. Brian Sweeney. Bonjour, Paul. Let's see, did I miss anybody? Oh, and hello to Bill Joseph. All right. Now, I saw the live stream clock just reset, so maybe you didn't hear me say hi to everybody. But hello to Sabana. Yeah, I started with Ruth, saying hello to Ruth, but ahoy! So, yeah, technology. Hopefully it's working. Consider yourself all welcome, even people who are traveling through space-time continuum and watching the recording. So I don't know that I show this. I'm just going to show this just because I'm thoroughly enamored by this. So I don't know if you can tell what this is, but this is a piston off a car, and the skirt of the piston has been cut off, and it was turned into an ashtray by my brother. But I don't smoke, but the striker for the bell fits just really nicely in here. And so even like it's the right, the diameter is not quite right, you can see that, but anyway, yeah, it would be a very big cigar, Paul. A very good point. So anyway, that's one of the things that's like off camera that I'm like, sometimes you see it over there, which you might see more things now since there's higher fidelity picture. It's not just it's the Sinclair dinosaur, not just a green baggie. So what are we doing here? We're not here to look at accessories, although I'm delighted to show you one. We're here to meditate. My name is Andrew. I am a certified mindfulness meditation coach. I am a software engineer by trade and training. And as a software engineer, I find meditation remarkably helpful. I don't always have great sits. I guess it's one thing I always feel like some people tell me they stop meditating because it's not calming, or it's not doing what the hashtag self-care says. And that is frustrating, but at the same time, I don't know, try to figure out what's the right expectations that we should set for meditation. So what we should expect is that we're going to spend 25 minutes today. And the last 5 minutes, we'll let go of whatever technique and we'll do nothing. We'll usually start with a bit of a focus on posture, and then I'll kind of just give you a level set at the beginning. That usually lasts about 3 minutes. That's my goal. Doesn't always last 3 minutes. Sometimes it lasts 4, sometimes it lasts 2, but it's back and forth in that. So light guidance. Often the techniques that we use in that 20-minute period are techniques that are borrowed from the Unified Mindfulness System, which has some more clear, explicit ideas around categories of experience and what we're experiencing when we are meditating. Yeah, I think that's most of the things I would normally say. I don't think Brooke can make it, but Brooke will be your guest host. Or I don't think Brooke can make it today. Ooh, Allison's primed and ready. Pre-yoga is, I think yoga has to be one of those really nice pre-meditation things to do. So, but yeah, as Paul points out, Brooke is going to the big leagues on Sunday. Brooke is going to be filling in for Jeff. So all y'all will know Brooke from filling in here on this very YouTube channel. But yeah, so that is I'm glad. I was like, wow, Jeff really did put her on the spot, but we all know that Brooke is great. So that's coming. And then I don't think Fred can be here tonight because I think Fred is in the middle of harvest. But Fred has been asked to be a chat moderator for the Do Nothing Project. So you'll see Fred in the blue font here coming up on Sunday. So those are our big announcements. To me, very big announcements. I'm going to be meeting with both of them to give them the background on what YouTube behind the scenes looks like and all the other sort of stuff. But super cool stuff. So I wanted to share that news because it's very exciting and very cool. And then they're filling in. I'll be at Patagonia Lake, which Saban might know about because it is one of the nicer state parks in southern Arizona. And that's where, yes, he will be rocking the bouffant. And then I think Monday the appropriate Thanksgiving, also known as Canadian Thanksgiving. I think it is. I think it lines up this year with, in the States, it's Indigenous Peoples Day. But I do think so for those curious, I think that's why Aaron didn't line up as a good guest host. So But yeah, so I'm going to be spending time in Lake Patagonia, both doing some inflatable kayaking and dipping my feet in the water and soaking my feet. So, all right. Well, that's enough preamble and everything else, but I wanted to make sure to share the news about Brooke being your guest host on Sunday for the Do Nothing Project and Fred being one of our moderators for the Do Nothing Project. So, what are we going to do today? We're going to do very little is the goal. So if I sometimes I remember to do this, and I think most everyone here gets the email reminders. But so I sent out an email reminder maybe an hour ago. If you don't get the email reminders and you want to get the email reminders, send me an email at that email address, and I'll add you to the list. But one of the things that, so I don't know a whole bunch about Martha Beck. I think Martha Beck has a counseling background and is a coach, or at least does a lot of her writing for books and things from the coaching perspective, less from the clinical perspective. And anyway, she has a book called The Joy Diet, which is a diet for producing more joy, similar to The Joy You Make, which was our topic for Sunday, Stephen Petro's book that features Jeff and the Do Nothing Project community in that book. So the Joy Diet is sort of a menu of options that Martha Beck thinks are helpful for producing joy. So if you want to be joyful, these are things you should eat or consume or do that would make one joyful. The reason I mention all of this is the Joy Diet starts with doing nothing, or sensitizing yourself to being able to sit and not do anything. The interesting part is that it's not really about meditation. It's just this idea of like sitting and doing nothing. And ideally, the suggestion is to sit and do nothing early in your day. And if you don't sit and do nothing, that's fine. You don't have to. But in her sort of framing in the book, The Joy Diet, if you don't meditate in the morning, you have to write down why. And I have been using this for getting my sits in the morning. So just doing like 15 minutes. But that I love this idea of you can not sit, but you just have to write down why, or you have to at least kind of like process why do I not want to sit right now. And so I think it's straightforward, but a very interesting kind of a thing. So, but yeah, so like, and Paul, the bringing the barrier down for like it being like loafing or relaxing, or we talk about Nixon or things. Anyway, so that was the piece, and then what I'll try to work into our guidance tonight is just this idea of like looking for when we're trying to like grade ourselves. So I sometimes refer to that as like like the mental evaluation tapes is one thing that I'm borrowing from Joseph Goldstein in that case. There's a punk rock band from like San Pedro, California, and there's this line about my mind is a tape recorder. It's one of the lyrics, and I think about that sort of often, like this idea that my mind is actually like replaying certain looped behaviors, and it's like on a loop, very much on a loop. And so looking for those situations of like when I'm grading or I'm like evaluating, like if you ever taught, I've taught in classrooms. The most stressful time for you as a teacher is when you are being evaluated by an external evaluator. It's this idea there's like this person in the back of the room and they're looking at kind of like everything you're doing. And when you're an early teacher, that notion of being evaluated is just super stressful. And there's at the time, I just really didn't have a way to process or deal with it. I would like to think that I would be better at that now, but you may resonate with this idea that we have our own sort of like external evaluator in our head that is like, I don't want to do this right now. So that's one thing I noticed as I started trying to like process, why do I not want to sit in the mornings? So one of them is just I don't want to sit right now. And so the notion then is like, okay, well, why don't I want to sit? Some mornings my excuse is, or the reason I don't want to sit, maybe I shouldn't call it an excuse, but the reason I don't want to sit is because I don't have time before I have to go to the gym. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to write down my reason really quick and throw it in my journal. And then I'll come back to that kind of like, and see if there's anything underneath that, like there's anything behind that. So, all right. So anyway, that's a lot of talking and a bunch of different things. So now all of that is sort of set up in this notion of just a few reminders. If you notice that you're kind of grading your application of the technique, just trust that you're doing it right, which I know is a leap. So, all right. So I've got my phone on airplane mode. So we're going to just queue up that we do, in fact, have 25 minutes on the clock. Thank you again for being here and making the time. I'll invite the bell to start. All right, just hopefully that didn't startle you. And as the bell fades off, just really beginning with sort of arriving here in our bodies and in our postures. And the reminder, as I often do at the top here, you could be walking or standing, lying down, all incredibly valid postures for meditation. The focus here will be on the seated posture, either in a chair, on a bench, or on a cushion. And really, the main sort of orienting instruction is just being upright without being uptight. One way to help with that is to sort of focus on sort of holding, or focus on the posture and how your bones are sort of sitting in that posture. So kind of another way to put it is that we sort of sit with our bones, which sounds really cool and zen and is hopefully helpful in an instructive way. And if you've had a busy day like I have, where you're moving around and doing a lot of thinking, this might be the first sort of jarring moment of pausing. So you kind of imagine that, like the sensation of the body might be like the cartoon car that like stops so hard that the car leans and lurches like all the way forward onto the front wheels. So if you get that, just settling in, acknowledging, oh yeah, this is the first time I sat and held still for a moment. It's going to feel like that. Doing whatever we can to welcome and acknowledge what is already here. And then once we're past that, for our sort of checklist, a few calming, deliberate breaths. Or I should say a few deliberate breaths. Whether or not they're calming is of no consequence, just deliberate breaths. Slow and low is the tempo that we're going for. And just offering sort of two options of working with a home base. One is sounds around you, or sounds coming from my environment. Think of that in terms as hear out. And then the other is physical body sensations, or feel out. And that includes the breath. You might notice that as you pick one of those, you've already got kind of a running sports commentator sort of continual here in. So that can be there, or we can try to endeavor to allow that to be there. And then shift our attention to here out. And we're giving ourselves an infinite number of restarts. The mind comments on something. And we're okay with that. It's hard to be okay with that, but we're okay with that. Switch back to here out. And so, whichever home base you've chose, go ahead and explore that. And just the last reminder, you have infinite number of restarts. So sometimes it's helpful to think about or to consider herein or mental talk as kind of a distinction between it being thoughts that are just kind of popping up. Like, I wonder if it's legal for me to adopt a red panda. That's a random thought. But when it moves into the next thought, well, I wonder how would I know about that, or where would I find that out? That's the thinking part. So there's thoughts, and then there's the train of thought or thinking. So just seeing if you can allow the thoughts to be there and not get on the train. Again, we'll get on the train and then realize we're on the train, get off at the next stop. Maybe that's reset your posture. Maybe it's a deep breath and then beginning again. Again, you've got infinite resets. You can start over. So seeing if you can allow the thoughts without participating in the thinking. So if you're feeling a little spacey, or maybe you don't feel like you have good contact with your home base, can tune that a bit, or we can do some fine tuning. So the pattern that we're working with the home base, we're noting that our attention is concentrated on our home base, soaking the attention in. You could be just sort of noting and not doing a label. Could add the label if you aren't. You can increase the frequency of the label. And that can help with that sort of sense of spaciness. And if you're in a place where it's okay, you can speak the label out loud if you're comfortable. So if you're focused on the physical body sensations, feel would be our label. And so again, using the label when we're noting, increasing the frequency, and then the sort of like higher decibel would be just saying it out loud, going from mentally repeating it to saying it out loud. And if you go to that level, see if you can use your yoga teacher voice, your sort of equanimity voice. And finally, your sort of last decision of our sit, sort of, if you want, you can, if you have a pleasant sensation, sometimes I have a restful sensation at this point in the sit, and I'll just continue with that restful sensation. But this is your opportunity to put the technique down and do nothing. So again, you're always welcome to continue with the technique, but this is your opportunity to just be totally fine with sitting and coasting or loafing. I'll ring the bell to signal the end of our sit. Thank you for your practice. Thank you for making time to be here. If you have any reports or questions, you can put those in chat. I also know that we're about 8 minutes from the top of the hour, and so I know I've got to disappear and go to my Zen study group. You're incredibly welcome. So after the comment of like you can decide to keep going, kind of like as a notion of sometimes I'll have really pleasant sensations in the body, and so I'm like totally all about wanting to stick with that. Sometimes it's pleasant sensations along my spine, or sometimes it's a pleasant sensation in like the front of my body. And so that's definitely one of those things to if you have the choice, like it's sort of there's I think it might be a motorcycle gang reference, but those who ride decide, I think is one of the things that you'll hear Shinzen Young say. And so like Ruth is pointing out, sometimes the beginning part is just really hard to settle in, and that's where the 25 minutes can kind of help sometimes, because sometimes it's, if you're only able to sit for 5 or 10 minutes, it feels like it's never going to be any different than it is during that 5 or 10 minutes. And then other times like that, it's like there's a sort of an easing, and sometimes it's just not comfortable for 20 minutes. So so there's something beneficial to knowing that everybody else is sitting. So putting that out there. And one of the Zen priests in the group that I sit with. Again, I'm not a Zen teacher. I'm not authorized. That's the way you say it, to teach. But I love the stories behind Zen, and so anyway, a new priest, who's been a member of our community for a long time, but new as a priest, had said, gave a Dharma talk that was something to the effect of, if you think you're doing it wrong, you're wrong. And I really liked that, and it made me think a lot about that notion, as I said at the top, about letting go of the checks and everything else. And then I just totally forgot to give you cues about letting go of that. So anyway, hopefully that you weren't disappointed that I didn't provide any of that. So and for those that will follow me on, or those that follow me on Instagram, know that I'm usually either posting something about a red panda or a raccoon, one of the other. And so my random thoughts are like, like along those lines. So definitely thank you, Bill B. I'm super I'm like sports. It's a sports time for me at the moment, so I'm very pleased to be able to follow along with the baseball playoffs and everything else. So hopefully the Padres do well tonight. Oh, interesting. Thank you, Bill J. Interesting. Oh, okay. You're very welcome. Yeah, so safe travels to you, Bill B. I think we all wish we were heading to Hawaii, probably, depending on your current, like right here in Arizona, it's been very warm. So so normally I try to not complain about the temperature, but it's been relentless. So So there's plenty of new things awaiting you on Sunday. Say hello to the future for us, Lynn. If you're watching this in the future as a recording, and we'll be back next week. So see you then.